afternoon. My name is Jennifer DeMudd, and I am with the Manufacturing Growth Alliance. Our mission is to support small manufacturers across the state. Thank you for being part of today's conversation. Digital technologies are impacting all manufacturers. The pandemic has accelerated the need for small to medium manufacturers to learn, access resources, and implement Industry 4.0 technologies to solve workforce challenges, increase efficiencies, and stay competitive. We have a full agenda. We will hear from a number of organizations who are paving the path for small manufacturers to become equipped to adopt Industry 4.0 technologies. We will also hear from a manufacturer in the Upper Peninsula about their journey with Industry 4.0. Our presenters will take about 40 to 45 minutes in total to share. You can place questions in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We will make sure to respond to your questions. We are recording the conversation to share with manufacturers in the Upper Peninsula and Northeast Michigan region. First on the agenda is Natalie Chimico, Vice President of Pure Michigan Business Connect and International Trade at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. She will share insights into Michigan's Industry 4.0 initiative. Thank you so much for being here, Natalie.
Thanks, Jen. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having me. So today I'm here to discuss an exciting new multi-pronged initiative that was launched at the state level to support Michigan small and medium-sized manufacturers in becoming Industry 4.0 ready. Next slide. As you already know, around the globe, Michigan is synonymous with manufacturing. But in order for Michigan to remain competitive and successful in the future of manufacturing, we must be the most advanced and productive by positioning our workforce and our companies at the forefront of technology. During our statewide economic development strategic planning process back in 2019, we recognized that we need to prepare our small and medium-sized manufacturers for the digital transformation that is already underway. And since the pandemic, this has only accelerated the need for the transformation. Next slide. In a national study shown here, only 12% of small and medium-sized manufacturers said that they were very prepared to adopt Industry 4.0 technologies, with the remaining saying that they're somewhat prepared or a little prepared or not prepared at all. And this presents a big problem when it comes to the future of our manufacturing industry. This convergence of digital and physical technologies all require new ways of thinking and working. And if we don't prepare for the onset of Industry 4.0 today, here in Michigan, a staggering 42% of our current labor force could be impacted by automation. Next slide. So how are we taking this potential risk and turning it into an opportunity for Michigan to become a national leader in this space? So we've established a multi-pronged effort to support businesses along this digital transformation journey. Our ambitious goal is to ensure 50% of all Michigan manufacturers, or 6,200 businesses in total, will be prepared to adopt Industry 4.0 by 2025. Next slide. So in order to support manufacturers statewide, we have built upon our partnerships with two existing leaders to provide support services no matter where a company is on their Industry 4.0 journey. And you will hear from these two leaders later on in today's discussion. Our partnership with Automation Alley is all about awareness. Automation Alley is the Industry 4.0 knowledge center for the state and helps companies understand what this shift means for their business and their culture. And because of the enhanced partnership, all Michigan manufacturers have access to their education, their leadership evaluation, and their resources. And to complement our work with Automation Alley, the Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center is providing in-depth technology assessments for small and mid-sized manufacturers, recommending the Industry 4.0 technologies best suited for profitability improvement and job retention for each unique business. Additionally, they are providing the opportunity for companies to see the technologies firsthand through their roadshows. And at the same time, we will continue to address the proven lack of awareness of the impact and the importance of Industry 4.0 preparedness across the state through a comprehensive paid marketing campaign encouraging small and medium-sized manufacturers in Michigan to become better prepared for the future industry trends and growth. Next slide. So in addition to our partnership with Automation Alley and MMTC, we also wanted to support regional programming and initiatives. These regional partners are providing education, pilot grants, events, and webinars, increasing the overall awareness and preparedness of their different areas of the state. So you'll see the Manufacturing Growth Alliance as part of this group, which is why we're connecting today. So with this 5-year strategy to support manufacturers throughout the state, we are partnering at the state level, providing consistent services available for all Michigan manufacturers. We're partnering with the regional organizations and providing local opportunities to grow the industry based on targeted needs. And then finally, we're executing a marketing campaign, generating awareness that we're here to help through this digital transformation. And through these partnerships, awareness, and education, we are continuing to reinforce our state's value proposition and leadership in advanced manufacturing and the jobs it supports for years to come. So for more information about this initiative, please visit michiganbusiness.org/industry4-0. And next, I will turn it over to Eric Davis, Technology Investment Analyst at Automation Alley, to talk about what Industry 4.0 is.
Thanks, Natalie. So to talk about what Industry 4.0 is, because there's many different terms out there for, people use digital twins, for example, as a term for Industry 4.0. Let's take a step back and look at what are the previous industrial revolutions, right? So you have the first Industry 1.0, that's where we start incorporating power into our manufacturing. We get steam and we start using not just horses and humans to do our work, but we actually start using some sort of energy to produce things. Next, we have Industry 2.0. That's where we start getting into Ford's assembly line. We start mass producing things. This is where we really amplify some of the energy that we get through our electrical systems to really increase the amount of production that we can do on the physical side. When we get to Industry 3.0, right around the 1970s, late 1960s, that's where we start seeing the incorporation of automation into some of our manufacturing processes. So basic computers being overlaid onto our manufacturing processes and some small electrical components being put in there. So as we get to Industry 4.0, it's taking that next step of digital and physical and really taking all of the decisions that we make as an organization and putting into this connected piece. So if you could think of Industry 4.0, it's the convergence of digital and physical technologies that are going to, widely disrupt the manufacturing industry in the sense that the way things were produced before may not necessarily be produced in the future. And when we look at different technologies available through Industry 4.0, we can think of one as additive manufacturing, where instead of taking a part and reducing it down into a more into a finished good, we can actually take the material and add it. So think of like a 3D printer using metal, plastic, things like that. The next piece would be artificial intelligence. So think of complex tasks that humans would normally do, but not necessarily as creative as what we can do, and putting those into machines and possibly computers to automate the process of certain things. So think of a collaborative robot going around your workspace, and it's able to understand, where to go, what objects are which to pick up, those types of things. The next area we talk about is big data. So think of looking at all the data your organization has and how is that all going to be analyzed and streamlined and then used for making decisions at an executive level, but also at a day-to-day level as well. Next, we look at cloud computing. So think of this as taking all of your systems and putting them onto a centralized server in an offshore location. So maybe not having the hardware physically on site, but more necessarily hosted in a separate place. So you can have more connectivity to third-party systems. The next one that most people know about is cybersecurity. So this is not only just protecting your basic systems in your back office, so like your email, client portal systems, but also looking at how can your systems be protected on the manufacturing floor. So that's a fairly newer concept in regard to cybersecurity, in which protecting not only just the back office, but also making sure that production doesn't get attacked in some sort of way. Next, we look at modeling, simulation, visualization, and immersion. So this is taking something that's physical and making it into a digital reality, right? So an example we can use along with AI being incorporated into this is training workers to build parts more efficiently and more safely. And so what they can do is while they're building the part, they may be able to get visible cues from some outside system to tell them, hey, as we're watching you build this, it might be more efficient for you to do it this way, and et cetera. Next, we have robotics. So these are the things, basically automated tools that can help go through and build things for your system and for your products. And then finally, industrial Internet of Things. So think of sensors that can be overlaid on top of physical things. And so when we think of Industry 4.0, not all of these technologies are going to be in a silo. Most of them, if not all of them, each of the technologies are going to be used in some sort of application. So for example, the collaborative robot that I talked about before, it may use sensors, so that's IIoT, to sense the area around them. It'll use AI to then analyze the data and make sure that it's doing the correct thing. It's a robot, so it's got that component of it. It may use some sort of visualization to understand the surrounding around it. So there's big data. As it collects more information, it may also incorporate that into decision making. So when we look at Industry 4.0, think of all the things that we do, not just on the manufacturing floor, but also when we're making sales, when we're in our marketing, when we're performing handoffs of information to operations and marketing and sales and finance, and how these all are connected together. So you might already be doing something that's Industry 4.0 related, just maybe the terminology is a little bit different, but just kind of clear the air of this is what we're talking about when we talk about Industry 4.0. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Todd Broussard of Calumet Electronics. So take it away, Todd.
Thank you, Eric. Wow. That really sounds, it sounds like there's a lot to Industry 4.0. And if you're a small business in Michigan, and you do manufacturing or you do design, you're sitting here trying to figure out where do you even start? What a potentially Herculean undertaking. Just a little bit about our company. We're Calumet Electronics. We make printed circuit boards and soon IC substrates for microelectronics. We're located in the northernmost part of the Upper Peninsula, so we're pretty far from supply chain, and we're doing interesting things and interesting technologies that we believe as a Michigan company we're going to outpace things that are going on in California and in even Silicon Valley. We are a technology industry. I'm an electrical engineer. I'm a computer programmer. I'm a geek. I love robots, and I read sci-fi books. So I can imagine this Industry 4.0 that's coming. And yet I sit as an operations manager, a COO of a small manufacturing business. And I'm like, how do we get there, right? Let's talk about automation for 1 second. Let's say, the fourth industrial revolution and factory 4.0 and smart factories, it's all about automation, right? And Asia's doing that really well. They build 500,000 iPhones a day, and it's all about the automation. But what are our customers domestically or in the United States asking for? They're not necessarily asking us for this huge amount of volume, which adapts very, very nicely to automation. We're being asked to manufacture a low quantity of a very complex design, which can pivot during the manufacturing process. And if we know anything about automation and robots and scripting and programming, is once it's programmed, it doesn't change really until somebody comes along and makes those changes. So are our customers asking us for advanced automation, or are they asking us for advanced products, which you may or may not use advanced automation to do? So we know that most of this manufacturing that we've lost to Asia isn't coming back. They're too far ahead. So how do we, as manufacturers, small manufacturers in the United States, actually become competitive? How does the United States become self-reliant? How do we, right now, it's something on the order of like 90% of advanced electronics, they're coming out of Asia, right? And that kind of is a security risk to our country. And that's part of the things that we're working to figure out how to solve. So the question really becomes, are we really trying to build a smart factory at Calumet Electronics, or are we really just trying to build like a factory of the future? And there's a lot of different ways that that can actually be defined. One of the things that we're interested in is, in Michigan, if we can make Ford F-150s at a great pace, what does it look like to make, the low orbit satellites, that are going to be used for, broadband communication and those types of things. So we, as a company in Michigan, are struggling, with this idea of how do we you don't get to start from scratch. We're a going concern. We ship 4 million circuit boards a year out of this facility. We can't stop producing for a day. So what are the steps? How do we become more competitive? How do we leverage automation, right? Part of where we think we would start, or that we have started, is with simply putting barcodes on all of our products and allowing the machinery that normally you have, a human that goes in and hopefully types in the right part number or the right recipe into the machine. Instead, there's some sort of a scanner on this machine that the part comes in and it can see that. And then it can automatically load up the right program or automatically do the right things. Something else that is really capturing our interest, we are engaged with some DoD primes, with IPC, which is our main trade organization, and other businesses to try to take initiatives to take this kind of manual industry that making circuit boards is and make advancements. Digital transformation, augmented reality, where they're having a problem with a piece of electronics in another country, and everybody in the supply chain can put on the headset and everybody's seeing the same thing. And we can figure out that the tier 2 provider put a screw here, which is interfering with a circuit that the tier 4 provider put here, and we can all be on the same conversation. Those are the kinds of concepts that are being actively explored. But a little closer to home is this idea that we have manufacturing equipment. We have PLCs that are running $27 million worth of computer hardware that goes all the way 20 years old to just brand new. Is that we can begin to put these sensor systems that we actually put on top of the PLCs so that they can see everything the PLC is doing. They can read all the sensor data, and they can take that information and build up basically large data sets of information, which can then be used to make decisions or detect problems. So I think I'll kind of finish up. I don't want to go too long here, but with one example is we have a wet process line that does something to make a circuit board. It's got 10 steps in it, and each one of those steps we do statistical process control on. We need to monitor 3 to 8 parameters in each one of these chemical baths, and we need to understand a lot about it. We can have every single module in this unit give all green lights, yet somehow a product that comes out the back end is non-conforming. And the question is why is that? Well, maybe the third process is in spec, but it's actually running, at a tolerance that it's running at the bottom end of the spec. And this process down here is running at the top end of the spec. So even though both processes are in spec, this misalignment across the entire machine is creating a kind of a boundary condition that can result in a nonconformance. So what might we do? Well, we might use an industrial standard like CFX, Connected Factory Exchange, to pull information from that system and then feed it to an AI signature just like facial recognition, except you're not recognizing a face. What you're recognizing is the statistical process of these various processes. And then you do signature recognition. You basically say, you know, when we're making good product, because we've been training the system, good product, when something comes out that could be a bad product, the system can recognize that. So then it can alert us. It can say, hey, guys, across this particular machine, which is a legacy machine that's been overlaid with a data acquisition system for statistical process control, we can take that data, do AI analysis, and it's going to tell us, hey, you're probably making bad product right now. You just can't see it using the traditional methods. So that's an example, I feel, of something that is obtainable or doable, you know, for a manual factory to start taking those kinds of steps forward. And I guess I'll stop there. And coming up next, we have Jamie Headley, the Director of Business Development with Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center. Jamie?
Thanks, Todd. That was really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm with Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center. For those of you who may not be familiar with us, just quickly, we exist to help small to mid-sized manufacturers grow and prosper. We are a manufacturing specific training and consulting company, and we take care of all of Michigan. So we're very passionate about Michigan. As Natalie had said, we have partnered with the state to help get half of manufacturers in Michigan ready to adopt technology by 2025. And we've actually been working in the Industry 4.0 space for several years. So this is one of our passions. We have a lot of subject matter experts on this. We, however, do not sell technology. So when we work with manufacturer around technology, we're as a trusted advisor, as a consultant, potentially as a project manager, but we're not selling the technology. So we're not going to come in and tell you, you have to have, you know, this particular MES system or these particular sensors, you should do this. So we're there to be your trusted advisor. And how we're doing that is we have a technology assessment that's available to manufacturers. It's a free service that is part of this program where we would come out and spend about 2 hours in your plant. That would consist of a plant tour, but also a conversation around what are you doing currently with technology? So what's your strategy? Is there a need for it? Are your customers requiring it? Do you have a process or a strategy that we want to get to this point with technology? We'll also talk about how are you using the current technology that you have. So do you have an ERP system or an MEP system? Is it working well for you? What's making sense? What kind of systems and processes do you have in place to support that technology? And what makes sense? And ultimately, then after that conversation, we kind of put our heads together and come back with a report out or what we call the opportunity assessment. And so basically what we're able to come back to you with is an understanding of what your options are. So what would make sense? Where's the opportunity? So for example, we worked with one company recently that we found that there was a significant opportunity for an MES system, which is the ability to collect production data, production scheduling, that type of thing, that was going to allow them to get their inventory under control. In addition to that, we helped them with some lean work to shore up the process that would then support that system. And when we calculated the ROI, the payback was less than 3 months. So it was kind of a no-brainer. And the annualized savings were going to allow them to then further invest in technology a little bit further down the road. We've had other businesses that we've worked with where we're helping them with a significant technology implementation. So censoring of things, getting MES, automating lines, auto pack and offloading, those types of things. And what we're finding is that a lot of companies aren't necessarily aware of what type of technology is available to them, and really that it can be cost effective now. So a lot of us think of technology as industrial robots and how, I don't have $100,000 for that, or I don't need that. But there, as Eric was explaining, there's a lot more to Industry 4.0 technology than just that. And so there are a lot of very cost-effective implementations that can be done that have a very quick and significant return on investment. So not only are you going to get your ROI, but there may be additional annualized cost savings, again, that allow you then to reinvest into something else in your business. The other piece of it is sometimes you don't need technology yet, or the processes and systems themselves, the foundation of your business, needs to be shored up and stabilized to then support technology. And so that's where we come back with this. What makes sense right now? Where is the low hanging fruit? Or maybe it's the high hanging fruit too. Where are the opportunities for you to do things like increase capacity, right? So I'd like to increase capacity and efficiency. I'd like to find cost savings and reduce costs. I'd like to improve my employee experience. So I'm getting better retention and traction, and then people are happy and more productive. I want to improve quality. Those are the types of things that we're looking for. And are there ways to apply technology to do that? Are there ways to apply lean principles or other things? We can also look at, cross-training and skills and culture and leadership. So what are the ways that we can get you to be able to do those things? And again, the intention is always to start with the low-lying fruit, where you can get enough of a cost savings that it will pay for the next thing, right? So the investment that you're making is more of a one-time thing, and then it kind of pays for itself to get other things improved as you go, and to get you on a path to a strategy that gets you to be the most effective and most competitive that you can be, and then thus help you grow and prosper and help the state. I think that's probably the highlight of it, but like I said, the tech assessment is free. There's no cost to it. You can just give us a call and we'll schedule it with you. So you can reach out to us directly at the center. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Jen. You can reach out to Eric at Automation Alley. You can reach out to MMTC. All of us know how to get it back to us. We'll set it up and get it scheduled. It'll take about, like I said, about 2 hours. It's pretty painless. A walkthrough. You'll get the report out, and then if we can further help and assist you, we can. Sometimes with some of the technology programming, we've been able to find grant dollars to help subsidize that as well. Sometimes not, but it's always ROI focused so that you can make an intelligent decision about what makes sense for your business. So if there's not questions right off the bat on that, we can wait to the end. Then I'm going to pass it off right back to Eric Davis.
Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate the intro. So I'm going to talk about the leadership evaluation, which is another effort we're doing with MMTC and MMTC. And essentially, it's a continuation of the Industry 4.0 assessments we do here at Automation Alley. But we've tailored it down to manufacturers. So we're using a data set just for manufacturers. And it's a lot more simple, high level. The idea is when you take the leadership evaluation, you're going to come out with a few actionable steps that can at least get you towards the right next step to Industry 4.0, which is really about growing your business. And that's the connection we want to make with the leadership evaluation. Is it's not just a technology issue, it's a whole business issue. And how do the issues and challenges and opportunities that you face in the day-to-day, how does that impact technology adoption? So to do the leadership evaluation, all you need to do is, you got to be part of the leadership team at your organization. Just one person fills out a simple online form. You can do it from your phone. The questions are simple. It may take you a little time to formulate the right answers, but it's on a scale of 1 to 10, just kind of giving a baseline of where do you feel the company is at in certain areas. And when we look at the companies, we look at them in 3 different ways. We're looking at the culture of the organization. We're looking at how it develops strategy in the organization, and we're looking at how does it execute that strategy and how does that feed back into the culture. So once you fill out the online form, it kicks out a report that basically gives you a high level overview of what does your business look like compared to other manufacturers that we've taken through our evaluation and through the assessment. So you'll have a chance to look at, just based on your business model, what revenues you get, what industries you sell to, how differentiated your products are, what competitive advantages you may or may not have. How does that compare to other organizations like yourself? And we basically round that up into a metric called business complexity. And essentially we're saying, how complex is my business compared to other ones? And it's kind of a reality check to say, okay, if it's this complex, I should be handling it in a certain way. So it's a way for you to get a high level understanding of where your business fits in compared to other manufacturers in the state of Michigan. Next, once we look at the overall business, we then take those answers and look at, okay, where are the gaps and strengths in the organization when we get back to that culture, strategy, and execution? And so we take that and present and say, okay, based on what you said, this is the reality of your organization. And that's where you ask yourself, okay, does this actually look like my company? And if not, why? right? And then once you get at the end of the presentation, you'll get some easy to do exercises to basically figure out, how do I resolve those gaps between the two realities of what other manufacturers have said with similar scores and what my reality is as a manufacturer. And the idea is we want to create business. We want to create the business case to adopting Industry 4.0. And so the first part is to really just take a step back and look at the business from a high level. The next piece is we look at what are the competitive advantages you already hold in your organization. And that's where you can take advantage of digital opportunities, right? So if you are really great at customer experience, there may be opportunities for you to enhance that through Industry 4.0 technologies. And so the idea is once you walk away with those competitive advantages and start thinking about those investment opportunities, we then talk about what are the two different types of way to invest. So traditionally, when we've come across manufacturers, they have more of a defensive investment mindset. So think about, I'm starting a project, I got to calculate my net present value or some sort of payback period. And that does make sense. We wouldn't say eliminate that investment thesis, but it may not make sense for all parts of the organization, especially when it comes to innovation. And so to handle Industry 4.0, we need to recognize what parts of the organization, if I do a little bit of tweaking to, is it not going to break the whole thing, right? We're not going to throw on some new technology first day on a critical piece of manufacturing equipment, but we might do so on the back end, maybe to handle the flow of information between operations and sales. Or we may add a sensor to a machine that will give us some data, but not necessarily ruin anything, right? And so having that mindset of making smaller bets with an unknown ROI. So we can't calculate it up front, but we have an idea of where we want to go. So being comfortable with that and identifying those two different opportunities and when to make those investments are important. And then finally, like I said before, at the end, you'll get 3 exercises you can do to essentially figure out where is the low-hanging fruit that Jamie alluded to before that I can start digging into Industry 4.0. And that's where we want to make that connection of it's not a technology problem, it's a business and culture issue or challenge or opportunity really for your organization. And then at the end, there's going to be access to resources to MMTC and MEDC as well. And also along with the leadership evaluation, you're given a membership to Automation Alley as an essential member. So this gives you access to all of our content through our Industry 4.0 initiatives. When you take the evaluation, you want to understand some of the different aspects or different technologies. This is a good way for you to jump in and figure out those things. And to kind of align the two assessments between MMTC and the leadership evaluation, this is a great way for, if you want to take 5, 10, 15 minutes to figure out where I could invest where I could invest Industry 4.0, you can do the leadership evaluation, and that may give you a better sense of working with MMTC, or if you want to jump right in with them, that works too, where you can get the deeper dive and really figure out how do I build an Industry 4.0 culture. So yeah, well, that's it for the leadership evaluation. So I will hand it over to Ashley Breitner, who's Associate Director at Economic Growth Institute at University of Michigan.
Great, thanks, Eric, and good afternoon, everyone. As Eric mentioned, I'm with the Economic Growth Institute, or also known as EGI, here at the University of Michigan. But EGI has been working with small to medium-sized manufacturers across the state for more than 35 years. And today we're here, thrilled to be partnered with MGA on one of the regional Industry 4.0 efforts that Natalie mentioned earlier to support small manufacturers in Northeast Michigan and the Upper Peninsula, and really working to understand and start the integration process of Industry 4.0 technologies. So through a series of activities, including educational webinars, as you'll see on the screen here, company analysis, and technical assistance projects, MGA and EGI are going to work with manufacturers in Northeast Michigan and the Upper Peninsula to really have that foundational knowledge, that in practical knowledge that's necessary to move forward with implementing elements of Industry 4.0 to really ensure at the end of the day that you all remain competitive in the years to come. In all of our history of running programs to support small to medium-sized manufacturers, what usually gets your attention most in terms of where we can help you is the two words, free or grant matching funds. So I want to start out by highlighting that in the regional efforts with MGA, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a future slide, but there will be $10,000 grant matching funds available if you're in the Northeast regions of Michigan or the Upper Peninsula to help you with potential implementation projects related to 4.0 in your facilities. Next slide, please. So next, what I want to do is detail out a little bit more for you, kind of those three phases of our process and where we're going to help in these regions to get you prepared to best utilize those grant matching funds. Next slide, please. So first, through a series of educational webinars, we're going to look to introduce you to Industry 4.0 technologies that we've seen manufacturing companies that we work with on a daily basis work to integrate and really prove it successful in that ROI phase. Some of them are very basic starting points, and some of them get a little bit more advanced. So you can see on the screen there, our info sessions on the left side are one that you're attending today. We do have 2 more coming next week in case you know anyone that was not able to attend today and they're interested in attending. The webinars are coming up starting the last week in June. And you can see the dates and times that we have the first 2 posted there and the link to find out where to register on MGA's website. But throughout the 12-month period of our partnership with MGA, we will be holding additional webinars based on the needs and the opportunities that we see in companies in the regions we're working with. So we'll be really working to integrate and educate you on potential technologies and then also resources available to you to start down that path. Next slide, please. Okay, so after you get a chance to listen to those educational webinars, you might find yourself asking yourself the question, how do I know if my company's ready to implement some of these technologies? So in what we call phase 2 of what we'll be doing within the regions, we're going to work with companies to do a top-down analysis. So the first step is we typically are always signing non-disclosure agreements with the companies we interact with. We know you share a lot of personal and professional information with us as our project managers are engaging with you. So we want to make sure that all the information is protected. Also, as a university, to protect that information from the Freedom of Information Act. From there, you can see on the screen there, we would do a deep dive financial analysis followed by an operational analysis potentially. So when we do this deep dive financial analysis, we work with the company to gather their financial information and then conduct a ratio analysis and also a company valuation. So a lot of companies we work with, often wonder what they're valued at. This part of the process will help you to understand that better. But what it'll also do is help us to understand the firm's stability and strength and their financial aptitude to actually handle and integrate new technologies. So for companies that have that financial stability and aptitude to handle those potential technologies, EGI would then conduct an operational analysis to look at other elements of your company through a facility walkthrough, as you can see described on the screen there. So EGI's output of phase 2 is a leveled set of recommendations to increase your firm's value and also recommendations for high leverage points for potential Industry 4.0 adoption projects that we will then recommend could potentially be used, could utilize that $10,000 in matching funds if available. Next slide, please. Okay, so to implement high leverage point Industry 4.0 projects, at the end of the day, our team's going to help you to identify what those are and then find the right resources to make those happen. We'll help project manage with you and alongside your team to really make sure that they're implemented successfully. Next slide, please. So that's a little bit about the regional program that we are honored to be working with MGA on behalf of MEDC. And we are thrilled to be working in the region, and hopefully we'll be engaging with a lot of you manufacturers on the call today here over the next year. And at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Jen to actually talk a little bit more about some of those other regional partners that will be working with us on this program.
Thank you so much, Ashley. So there are a variety of partners that MGA has partnered with in order to deliver awareness and understanding and access to statewide and regional resources. You can see on the screen a handful of the regional partners. They are critical in sharing the information about Industry 4.0 to our manufacturing base in the Upper Peninsula and Northeast region. They also are critical in providing a wide variety of other resources to support small to medium manufacturers. As the Manufacturing Growth Alliance and the Economic Growth Institute engage with you through the webinars and conversation, we'll hear more about what keeps you up at night. What are your pain points? When it makes sense, we want to connect you with regional partners, with statewide resources to help alleviate your pain points so that you can be positioned for sustainability and implementation of some of these new technologies. And again, the screen identifies a variety of partners that are currently engaged, and there are more. So briefly, I'll cover some next steps. You can see on the screen some of the next steps that we recommend for you to take. First and foremost, recommend that you engage in the Industry 4.0 webinars. As Ashley pointed out, the educational webinars for the Upper Peninsula and Northeast region, the first one is scheduled for June 29 at 9 a.m. The webinar will share insights on advanced technologies such as AR, VR, analytics, and additive manufacturing. So we also encourage you to take the resources, partake in the resources of the statewide resources. So that's the leadership evaluation through Automation Alley, as well as the technology opportunity assessment from MMTC, both extremely important and valuable resources for you to engage in. Then we also would like you to consider talking with MGA or the Economic Growth Institute about that $10,000 grant matching funds to implement Industry 4.0 technologies. So we've reached the portion of our conversation and our presentation today where we'd love to answer any questions that have surfaced during the presentation or any questions that you have coming into the conversation. So I'm going to start with a few questions that are already posted. And for those that are thinking of questions, please go ahead and type your questions in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. So how have manufacturers navigated the perception that new technologies will result in fewer jobs?
Can I take that one, Jennifer?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so what we've seen with companies that have successfully implemented is there's got to be some sort of champion within the organization, you know, someone that's going to rally the troops that's at a decision-making level, right? So they can apply a budget to something and then they actually can implement it across the organization. So typically a CEO, it could be a manager, but it's got to be someone who's taking the mantle and driving Industry 4.0. So people can understand the technology, and that as they understand the capabilities of Industry 4.0, those perceptions go away. And for example, in our Project Diamond, where we distributed 300 3D printers to 300 manufacturers in Macomb and Oakland County, one of the case studies that came out of that was a manufacturer was worried that his fabrication person wasn't going to be doing anything. But what ended up happening is they used that 3D printer to make lower cost parts that fabricator can go to another spot in the organization and help out in the other parts of the team. And what that does is now we're doing revenue generating activities, cost saving activities to improve our profits, prove our growth. That raises sales. That allows us to get more people into the organization. It increases jobs. Now to that point, jobs might be different than what maybe previously, but that's how you get that perception broke down. Is there's got to be someone in the organization who's going to say, you know what, we're going to try it, we're going to push it forward, and we're okay if it doesn't work out. But generally, it will in the long run if someone has the gumption to do so.
Thank you, Eric. Would anyone else, our panelists, like to answer that question as well?
Sure, I'll jump in too.
Thank you.
And I agree totally with what Eric said. And what we're seeing is that, you know, you can use technology to get rid of the jobs that you're having a hard time keeping filled anyway. I mean, we have a significant labor shortage. So a lack of jobs, I don't think is the issue. We have a lack of people. And so when we take automation to help automate those jobs that are dull, dirty, or dangerous, the jobs that people don't want to do, they don't stay in. We have high turnovers. There's not a high advancement, and we automate those. We can then take the people in those jobs now and redeploy them. We can upskill them and train them into much more fulfilling jobs, higher wage jobs, things that they're going to enjoy more. They have much more of a tendency to want to stay, to be more committed to. So the intention is never obviously to eliminate jobs, but it's, you know, if we can keep people safer and we can give them a more meaningful and higher paying experience at work, that's the intention. And we've seen a couple of companies do that and do that very, very well, where they've automated and then raised people's skill level. And they're one of the few companies out there that aren't having problems with retention and turnover. So I think that's an option as well.
I want to back up what Jamie is saying. I guess, you know, the question is, this is how we're thinking about it. Historically, you know, it's been an economy of kind of, you know, manufacturing. It's been an economy of muscles and labor, you know, all these industrial revolutions from steam to electricity to computers, you know, these are all still very manual, kind of human strength intensive processes, whether these are simple jobs of loading or unloading machines or doing that type of thing. We are moving into more of an information economy, where how we think of it here, our journey is that we want to rely less on the labor of our workforce, and we want to rely more on the cognition of our workforce. We want to use their minds, right? Not their hands. So if we have these tedious jobs, you know, we're a 50-year-old company, and if we have these tedious jobs where something rolls up and then you sit there and you feed it, you know, you feed it one at a time, you know, for 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, how maddening, right? We have put some robots in. Okay, so we do have a few robot arms that are doing this. And you know what the first thing that happens when they put the robots in? The people stand there with their arms crossed for about the first 2 weeks and they stare at the robot. Quite justifiably, by the way, because in the first week, the robot's like throwing things everywhere, right? It's just not doing what you want it to do. But the next time you walk down there a week later, now you see there's these monitors that are on the wall that are showing what the robots are doing. So now the person can stand down and watch this robot. They can keep an eye on that robot, right? Now by week 4, nobody's looking at the screen anymore because the robot, it's got its thing and it's finally doing great. So what do we just do? If we had a person at each end of the machine, and that person each one costs us $35,000 a year, that's $70,000 a year of people standing there using their mechanical arms to take things on and take things off. Now, if you advance that forward, what could we end up with? We could end up with 2 pieces of automation at the end, one less operator that's going crazy because it's a very tedious job, and the one operator that's there, they have to be a little more advanced. They have to understand this machine and its temperament. They got to understand how to get it to do what they want it to do. But they're going to spend a lot more of their time actually looking at the quality of the product, not just not just doing this, but they're going to be like, okay, my process weren't running well. What are my yields? How are things looking, right? And when you're struggling with workforce, I mean, right now, people are struggling to find workforce. So everybody is valuable. Everybody is valuable, and you need to use those people effectively. You know, can one person run a bunch of different lines? We can pay them better. You know, they have jobs that are more interesting. They can rotate around, right? So a lot of things happen. A lot of things happen on the manufacturing floor when you take out the tedium of the manual labor, which kills minds. It just kills minds because it's just tedious. And that's not how we need to be spending our employees' time. That's not how we get the most value out of our people.
Thank you, Todd. So I'm going to jump to the next question. I think this next question, Natalie, might be good for you. What is the state doing to help manufacturers access the needed talent, like training of current employees?
Absolutely, that's a great question. And we have a number of programs that have recently been launched to support companies with their talent needs. You know, as you might have heard here in Michigan, Governor Whitmer had made this a top priority of her administration, laying out a statewide goal to increase the number of Michiganders with post-secondary credentials to 60% by 2030. And that will just help us build on the talent infrastructure that we already have in the state and provide companies the confidence that they have the workforce that they need. Additionally, there are programs like the My Reconnect program, which is a workforce development initiative that will create a tuition-free pathway for Michiganders to receive in-demand industry certificates and associate degrees. And we're already working with both to anticipate and fill skills gaps that exist in our talent pipeline for Industry 4.0. Additionally, we have a program that was approved by our board for $7.5 million, which right now we're in the RFP process, but there will be some regional support from local economic development organizations and workforce development organizations across the state to provide competitive training specific to their region. And we anticipate some of these coming in around the manufacturing industry and how to support companies in that space. And then the final one I wanted to mention was the Michigan STEM Forward program. We're working with Ann Arbor Spark to do a statewide initiative to partner with them to do about 450 STEM internships with current students in STEM focused internships throughout the state. And hopefully what we're aiming to do is that those internships will lead to long-term employment and help you, find the talent that you need and keep the students that we have and are preparing right here in Michigan. So there's a lot going on. I'm happy to provide more information on any of those programs after this session, but thanks for the question.
Okay, and there's one more question, and Todd, it looks like it's for you. With your Industry 4.0 advancement, what challenges have you had with internal adoption? We kind of talked about that a little bit already, but if there's anything you want to expand on it. So with advancing in Industry 4.0, what type of internal challenges have you had? Maybe with culture or just the desire to learn and to leverage those technologies?
I think it's important to understand. I like all of the Industry 4.0 talk and the smart factory conversation and fourth industrial revolution. Like I said, I'm a geek and I recognize it. But the truth is, all of our companies have to start wherever they are today. And when you're looking at what the next, Industry 4.0 looks like, it can be very intimidating and it can be very daunting and seem nebulous and impossible. At our company, we may be already doing some things that other companies aren't doing yet. We already have a very strong ERP system. We already have very strong work order tracking and more data than we know what to do with, analysis paralysis. And these are really great starting points. Understanding world-class manufacturing, understanding lean manufacturing. these are fantastic starting points, because what an Industry 4.0 does is it takes these really fundamental concepts of not having a lot of whip on your floor and understanding your cycle times, and it takes them to new levels. In our specific case with adoption, we have learned that change is hard for people, right? We have 200 people on our factory floor at various different levels of skill, experience, competency, and change is difficult. We've also found that after 3 months, nobody will remember how we did it before, because we are humans, we have plasticity of the mind, and we adapt. Usually what it is, it's that first decision to bring in that first piece of equipment, or to make that first change in how we should do something. Have you prepared your employees to be able to think there might be better ways to do this? And what are the benefits? What are the benefits to them? What are the benefits to the company? And so when we bring something in, I can think of the 2 robots that we brought in, and I asked the operators, what do you think of these things? And they're like, they don't work. And that was day 1. But I go down there today and they've given them names. They probably paint a little face on them, and they're going to say, Bill and Sue are doing great today. You know what I mean? No problems. But they'll say, as long as we bump this right at the right time, every other panel, bump it. And we're like, well, why do you have to bump it, right? And then to get them to tell us that there's these problems and we can solve them. So I think making progress towards, smart factories, you got to start where you are, and it is one step at a time, and then a second, and then a third, and then you start gaining a little momentum. Get some help from some experts, get some counseling, listen to what people say, make up your own minds. And the adoption can be satisfactory. It can be sufficient, right? Nothing has to be perfect. It just has to advance the company or move it forward. And you get better, and you get better, and you get better at it.
Todd, I
don't know if that helps, but
yeah, I don't think I need to close. I think that was a nice close. But we are at time, so I do want to say a few closing comments. Thank you all for joining today. Thank you to our presenters for being available to provide this knowledge and insight to small to medium manufacturers. We hope for those participating, the information session provided you with new insights into Michigan's Industry 4.0 initiative. Please take one of the steps we discussed today on our call. All of you today will receive the webinar recording as well as the slide deck. And please note that the slide deck will have links in it to access the statewide resources and then some of the regional resources. We're all here to support you, the small and medium manufacturers in Michigan, so you can be globally competitive. And again, thank you again to our presenters for on the call, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.